Townsend, and this is a forward research report on the evil agenda of the Yellow Vest movement in France and Europe. They are wanting to continue the pollution that is hurting our children, our adults, and our grandparents, especially pregnant women and small children that are affected negatively from automobile and truck pollution. They also are hurt by snow blowers and other internal combustion engines, whether it be a dump truck, a bulldozer. I find this shameful that they're clinging to this savage machinery. They could be riding bicycles or horses, wagons, and I have a video I put together from a Canadian government health website that clearly shows that the scientific evidence is conclusive that it is harmful. Okay, without further ado, the effects of air pollution on the health of children. Abstract. The present article is intended to inform pediatricians about the associations between ambient air pollution and adverse health outcomes in children within the context of the current epidemiological evidence. The majority of the current literature pertains to adverse respiratory health effects, outcomes including asthma, other respiratory symptoms, and defects. And deficits in lung function and growth, as well as exposure to ambient levels of criteria air pollutants in addition to the above. The present article highlights mortality, pregnancy outcomes, vitamin D deficiency, and alteration in the immune system of children. Some of the data on the impact of improved air quality on children's health are provided, including the reduction of air pollution in former East Germany following the reunification of Germany, as well as the reduction in the rates of childhood asthma events during the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, due to a reduction in the local motor vehicle traffic. However, there are many other toxic air pollutants that are regularly released into the air. These pollutants, which are not regularly monitored and have not been adequately researched, are also potentially harmful to children. Significant mortality and morbidity is attributed to ambient air pollution, resulting in a significant economic cost. Significant morbidity and mortality is attributed to ambient air pollution. As Canada's cities grow, air pollution issues need to be a priority in order to protect the health of children and support sustainable development for future generations. As America's cities grow, air pollution issues need to be a priority in order to protect the health of children and support sustainable development for future generations. As the world's cities grow, air pollution issues need to be a priority in order to protect the health of children and support sustainable development in future generations. An interest in the study of adverse health effects of ambient air pollution in children has been evident in the scientific literature in recent years. The Committee on Environmental Health of the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a policy statement in 2004 emphasizing the link between ambient air pollution and children's health. Children are known to be more vulnerable to adverse health effects of air pollution due to their higher minute ventilation, immature immune system, involvement in vigorous activities, the longer periods of time they spend outdoors, and the continuing development of their lungs during the early post-neonatal period. A large number of epidemiological studies have reported an association between exposure to criteria air pollutants and several morbidity and mortality outcomes in children. Criteria air pollutants consist of 6 air pollutants that are regulated on the basis of the potential to cause adverse health and or environmental effects. Ozone, O3, particulate matter, PM, nitrogen dioxide, NO2, sulfur dioxide, SO2, carbon monoxide, and lead. In the present commentary, we intend to highlight the adverse health outcomes associated with exposure to criteria air pollutants in children. The purpose of the present article is to inform pediatricians about the current epidemiological evidence on the associations between ambient air pollution and adverse health outcomes in children. Adverse effects of criteria air pollutants on children's health. Mortality outcomes. Ambient air pollution has been linked to increased mortality in children and adults. Sudden infant death syndrome. Sudden infant death syndrome, a leading cause of post-neonatal mortality in Canada and other developed countries, has been associated with exposure to criteria air pollutants. In a systematic review of the literature on the association between ambient air pollution and infant mortality, Gliniaria et al. Observed a consistent and significant association between particulate matter, PM, and post-neonatal mortality due to respiratory causes, as well as sudden infant death syndrome. Other studies have reported a significant relationship between ambient air levels of criteria air pollutants and mortality in younger children than 5 years of age. Adverse pregnancy outcomes. Ambient levels of criteria air pollutants have been associated with adverse pregnancy outcomes. Adverse pregnancy outcomes, including premature birth, low birth weight, intrauterine growth retardation, yes, retardation, abnormal birth length, abnormal head circumference, and small size of gestational age. Small size for gestational age. However, no specific trimester has been identified as the most vulnerable period of gestation during which air pollution might be most harmful to the fetus. Increased risks of birth defects. Increased risk of birth defects. Increased risk of birth defects. Currently, only one study has investigated the effects of ambient air pollution on birth defects. Ritz et al. Observed a significant association between prenatal exposure to carbon monoxide and cardiac ventricular septal defects. While ozone, O3 ozone, was associated with an increased risk of aortic artery and valve defects, as well as pulmonary artery and valve defects. Exposure to ambient levels of criteria air pollutants has been associated with several acute and chronic adverse respiratory health effects in both asthmatic and non-asthmatic children, although asthmatic children have been shown to be more susceptible to adverse health effects of ambient air pollution. Several studies have linked ambient air pollution to an increased prevalence of asthma symptoms, as well as increased incidence and prevalence of childhood asthma, particularly among children who regularly engage in sporting activities and those with increased asthma medication use. Increased asthma emergency department visits and increased hospitalization due to asthma. Other studies have documented an inverse relationship between exposure to criteria air pollutants and lung function in both asthmatic and non-asthmatic children, and non-asthmatic children, and non-asthmatic children. There is evidence suggesting that current levels of ambient air pollution may cause deficits in lung function growth in children. Ambient air pollution has been associated with increased reporting of respiratory symptoms among non-asthmatic children, as well as increased respiratory hospital admissions, and emergency department visits for children, and emergency department visits for children, and emergency department visits for children. School absenteeism is increased. I won't read that paragraph. Altered immunity. Exposure to ambient levels of criteria air pollutants has been shown to cause alteration in the immune system of children. Leonardi et al. Studied the impact of ambient air pollution on the immune system of children between the ages of 9 and 11 of the age in 17 cities in Europe, found that ambient air pollution may both cellular and hormonal immunity in children. Air pollution may alter both cellular and hormonal immunity in children. However, a study conducted in Chile by Ruiz found no association between ambient air pollution and hormonal immune system in children. Emerging evidence from animal toxicological studies suggests that ambient air pollution may cause suppression of the host immunity, a reduced immune system, increased risk of vitamin D deficiency rickets. In the tropics, children who live in regions with higher levels of ambient air pollution have been shown to be at risk of developing vitamin D deficiency rickets compared with those residing in less polluted areas. The amount of solar radiation in the ultraviolet B range reaching ground level has been found to be inversely related to the level of ambient air pollution haze. That means that the more air pollution in haze, the less vitamin D to help the children, it's essential to their health. Ultraviolet B radiation caused by the sun is required for the conversion of 7-dehydrocholesterol to cholecalciferol, vitamin D3. Excuse my pronunciation. I'm going to go ahead down to the conclusions. Significant morbidity and mortality, that means illness, serious illness and death in children. That means serious illness and death in children is attributed to ambient air pollution at great economic and human cost to society and to the entire biosphere, I might add. As the cities grow and our population increases, we need to be aware of air pollution and its effects on our children. Further studies are needed in Canada to improve our understanding of air pollution on the health of children, to aid policymakers in decisions that relate to the sustainability of development. Considerations need to be given to emerging science on non-regulated pollutants that may be affecting the health of children today and may also be endangering future generations by affecting genetic material. Local data from different environments across Canada will help pediatricians in their roles as clinicians, educators, and advocates. Significant research opportunity needs to be created to collect these data. This challenge needs to be addressed if we are to protect the health of our children in the coming generations. And there's over a score of references here, and I'll put a link in the description box of the video.